Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have vowed to take away your Second Amendment rights through gun bans, gun confiscation, and government regulations. Now, Joe Biden is no longer hiding his real intentions, and we need you to take action now.
Whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle, is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things. But
the Biden administration is coming after your right to own any gun, and we need you to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Joe Biden has already issued executive orders. He is now demanding Congress push through radical gun legislation. You can fight back to stop Joe Biden's gun grab, but you must text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Take action to protect your right to keep and bear arms. We urgently need millions of Americans to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, Craig DeLuz of The Rundown. Craig, thanks for climbing on board today, man.
It's always a pleasure to hang with you on Tuesday, sir.
Before we get to the news today, let me ask real quick, what's been going on with The Rundown, man?
Well, you know, dude, we've been it was kind of funny. This week started off kind of slow, and then today we talked about a number of different topics. It's and you know this. It's a great thing about doing both a good thing about doing a daily news program, as well as the challenges. Sometimes it's a slow news day. Sometimes it's not so much a slow news day. But we've had some really good topics. And, you know, like I said, we have the benefit of being able to talk about a little bit more than just gun stuff. So we talk about guns and we talk about politics. I won't get into too much of the politics here. But needless to say, there is plenty of gun stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Well, and we've got gun stuff to talk about today here, too. We've got 3 to 4 topics to cover today. First one up, and by the way, if you're watching us live, comment on either the Facebook or the YouTube feed, and we'll get your comments up on the air. We'll discuss them as we're live. But first story I wanted to talk about with you, Craig, Idaho is moving to protect gun rights. They may be getting their own version of the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. That's the federal act that says, look, if there's nothing wrong with the firearm, you cannot sue the manufacturer. If there's no defect in the firearm, you know, you can't sue somebody for using a firearm illegally. Idaho is going to get a state version of that. And beyond that, they're saying you cannot, if there's a state of emergency, you can't close down firearm stores, and you cannot revoke firearms permits by declaring a state of emergency.
Well, you know, and I'm glad they're doing this. Unfortunately, this is arriving out of a misconception. A lot of people think that the federal docket doesn't apply to state law, and so that's really what they're dealing with. Is they think that, well, if it doesn't apply to state law, well then you can go ahead and sue them or go after them based on state law. I know here in California they're introducing legislation they have introduced legislation that would allow them to do that. Once again, this has nothing to do about firearms being safe. This has everything to do with allowing nuisance lawsuits that will eventually run firearms retailers and firearms manufacturers out of business because of legal fees. And that's the scary part about this is these are simply people that what they do is they facilitate the exercising of a constitutional right. And that's what they're in fact being sued for. And, you know, you have the president who's basically lied and said, well, they can't be sued. Well, you and I know, just like every other manufacturer, they can be sued, like car manufacturers can be sued, like TV manufacturers can be sued. If their product is defective, or if they do something illegal in the manufacturing or the sale of their product, they can be held accountable. We already know that. But it's just if someone else, a third party, decides to take their product and use it in an illegal manner, they cannot be sued. Kind of like, if someone were to take a car and run it into a crowd of people, you can't go sue the manufacturer of that vehicle, or you can't sue the dealership that sold the vehicle to that individual.
Exactly. Several weeks ago, we had the instance where the bad guy took a Ford Escape and drove it through a parade in Wisconsin. Nobody's suing Ford or the dealership that sold that vehicle.
Exactly. That is the exact correct point. And unfortunately, that point is lost on the people whose goal, once again, whose goal it simply is to put those who facilitate the Second Amendment out of business.
Yep, absolutely. Next story I want to talk about is Iowa, and God bless Iowa. They've got 99 counties in Iowa. I know this because every 4 years we're reminded of it when one candidate or another, whether they're running for the Republican or Democratic nomination for president, some candidate for president says, I'm going to visit all 99 counties in Iowa, and they do it. Well, Iowa's got 99 counties. 34 of them are now Second Amendment sanctuaries in Iowa. When Muscatine County last night, the county commission voted to become a Second Amendment sanctuary. I think you and I have talked about this before, but this Second Amendment sanctuary county is kind of a big deal, kind of not a big deal. It's mostly symbolic, but the symbolism does get all the way to Washington, D.C. if there's enough of it.
Well, exactly. And I think at the county level, you're right. It is mostly symbolic. At the state level, though, however, it does have various implications because then what you have is instances where you have a state which is basically declaring that they're going to do what they're going to do, and they're not necessarily worried about if federal funding is going to be tied to or attached to whether or not they are implementing certain laws. They're not going to worry about it the way, say, maybe a county will, but it is wildly symbolic in that you have people who are elected at the local level who are elected to uphold the Constitution in their oath of office. They say they're going to uphold the Constitution of their state as well as the federal Constitution. And so it sends a huge message that you ought not be passing laws and sending them down and asking people to enforce them when you know that they operate contrary to the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. Now this one is going to take us a while because this one got my blood boiling this morning. I want to stay on one more state and then we'll go to a national issue, but I want to go to Oregon for the next one. And there is a bill in Oregon that they want to put a luxury tax on firearms. And what this luxury tax is going to go for is for people who are no longer children but are still having a hard time financially. These poor people who are just not getting it. They need help. And so they're going to lean on firearms owners to help fund these people. There's going to be a tax on every firearm sold in Oregon. That's the proposed bill. It's not gone through yet, but it's Oregon, okay?
Right. It's a luxury tax, and they have a number of different items included that could potentially be luxury items. Now, when you read the actual legislation, what it does is it says, for example, all-terrain vehicles with a value above blank, cars with a value above blank, and they got a number of different areas, and they include firearms with a value above blank. Now, we don't know exactly what those numbers are going to be, but that could very easily be firearms above $1.
Mm-hmm.
And they could consider a firearm to be a luxury item. And that would then amount to about a 3% tax. That would then go, to be honest, this is what it is. It's a redistribution of wealth. This is wealth redistribution. And it is taking from people who've earned and giving it to people who have not, and then tracking how they're spending that money. Once again, to make sure they're not spending it on something that they're not supposed to.
Right.
Yeah, you can see how angry we are here. Things are just we're just falling apart at the seams over here.
Yeah, this would be distributed directly on debit cards to these people, and the state would be able to track what they're spending on. Yeah, and given Oregon's track record, they're going to hit the ATM machine, and then they're going to go right across the street to the crack dealer. You know,
Or even worse, they could wind up spending that money on something that's wholly within the realm of the program, and then taking the money, the money that they have that they would have been spending on that, on like on food or on rent, and taking that money and spending it on something that they're not supposed to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Folks,
I am.
Yeah.
This one's
I always say this, and this is what I keep saying when you start talking about redistribution of wealth. Here's the thing. If you are not in control, if you don't have control over the resources over the wealth created or whatever is created from the fruits of your labor,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have control of the fruits of your labor, folks, that by definition, that is slavery. And when the government starts taking the fruits of your labor, right, and they start redistributing it giving it to someone else who has not earned it, like I said, that is then basically that is government slavery. And we fought a civil war over something like that. There's a reason why we have fought a war of revolution against England. And it was funny, of all the things that it came down to, it was taxation. And that's what this really comes down to, is a redistribution of wealth, because, they just believe, if you can afford something that they don't believe you should have, then you know what? We probably need to take that away from you.
Let me get a couple comments in here. And George is right on track here. I'm guessing not much of the money will be spent on printing resumes.
Oh, no, but I'll bet you a bunch of it will be spent on a bloated government bureaucracy.
Mm. Oh, yeah. Because they're going to have
whenever the government redistributes wealth, some of it, a good chunk of it goes to the government.
Mm-hmm. Mike says maybe they can spend their money on a new gun. I like that.
Yeah, it says it's only for tracking purposes, by the way. So it doesn't say that there's a prohibited way in which you can spend that money.
And then Mike, I think we touched, because we're getting all kinds of comments on this one. Mike also says, luxury tax on firearms? How could that be more racist?
Well, it's classist, if nothing else, because it basically means that if you can afford to own a firearm, you must be one of those people. So we need to make sure you are. Well, the whole goal, quite frankly, is to make sure that people can't own firearms. I mean, any of these luxury taxes, any of these taxes, fees that they're looking to put, requirements for insurance, all of that is all about creating a barrier to exercising your right to keep and bear arms.
You tax what you want to kill.
Yep, pretty much.
Which is why, Democrats have always been about taxing income. They want to kill everybody's income. They want everybody to be poor. That's why everybody's for an income tax.
Right. Well, in the end, what it is they want to control. Eventually, what they want to do is they want to control the means of production. They want to control the economy. They want to control your ability to make decisions. And, believe it or not, money is power. Money is choice. The more resources you have, the more choices you have. And what they don't want is they don't want you to have choice. They want you to choose what they want you to have.
Mm. Well, let's get to our last story we were going to bring up, and speaking of taxes, this one I think is quite literally unconstitutional. There is, on the federal side, there is a new bill up, and this one is in the House right now. New York Democrat, trying to find who that was again, the Protecting Americans from Gun Violence Act of 2022, introduced in the House by U.S. Rep. Nadia Velasquez. The bill would establish a fund to pay for federal gun violence research, while at the same time saddling victims of gun theft with fines and threats of imprisonment should they forget to report a firearm stolen. The bill's initial language would add a $1 fee to each use of the National Instant Criminal Background Check System in relation to a gun sale. So if you're going to go to a gun store and buy a firearm and you fill out a NICS check, $1 is going to go into it, and that's going to go to the federal government. And about 2 cents of that, because 98% of it's going to stay in the federal government, about 2 cents of that is going to go into a government anti-violence bill. So yeah,
it ultimately the issue here is that this is supposed to, and they're trying to call it a fee. The problem is fees are supposed to be basically you pay a fee for a service. There's got to be a direct nexus with the fee, and the problem is there's no service here. This is literally nothing more than a tax. And there's a way in which you have to do a tax, and that's not exactly what they're looking to do here. So this one is definitely going to be challenged.
Absolutely. Should it get passed? And let's face it, this is in the House. If it clears the House, and there's a good chance it will, it's got to get through the Senate. And should it get to the Senate, believe me, I will let everybody know if it makes it to the Senate. And we will be yelling at people, get a hold of your senators, especially if you live in Kentucky.
Yep, most definitely. Especially if you live in Kentucky. Folks, once again, this just goes back to it. This is about funding. It's about making it more cost prohibitive for people to be able to own firearms. And I get it that $1 doesn't sound like a whole lot, but here's the deal. Once they have this fee in place, they'll keep coming back and they'll keep finding reasons to add to the fee. So that's number one. And this is already, they're already taxing an item that is probably one of the most taxed and the most regulated items, pushing up the cost of anything that that you could potentially be dealing with. So then there's that, but then finally, this is a constitutional right. We don't have this sort of tax on anything else. I don't understand why we have it on, we would be okay with it on the right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah, we went through 100 years ago. We went through the poll tax, and rightfully, the Supreme Court said you cannot have a poll tax. You cannot tax a constitutional right, and yet we have taxes on almost everything surrounding the Second Amendment, and here they come again.
Right. Well, and this thing, once again, is going to have a very hard time passing the Senate. But once again, it's still something that we can never take for granted because there are a bunch of, I hate to say this, but there are people who are on our side who claim to be pro Second Amendment, but, they're Second Amendment buts, meaning they're pro Second Amendment, but hey, why don't we have something that promotes safety? None of these programs that they put money into ever promote firearm safety. You want to support something that supports firearm safety? Support support NSSF. They have a program. Support the NRA. They have a program that promotes firearm safety. Right. Private organizations, private statewide organizations, have organizations that actually teach people how to be safe with their firearms. Yeah. Those are the things that do it. The stuff that the state does, the stuff that the federal government does, no, they do not promote firearm safety one bit. They promote firearm confiscation and regulation.
Yeah, I was just listening to Eye on the Target radio this past weekend, and USCCA in Beth Alcazar has a program for children that is just, I heard about this past weekend, that is just outstanding. There are a number of private and state level, local level that do outstanding job on safety. Red flag laws is not where you, the gun safety and red flag laws, those aren't safety at all. They're meant to disarm. That's what they're meant to do.
They are gun confiscation. They are, I don't know that there is a category of law or a law that violates as many of our constitutional rights as red flag laws do. And I will debate anybody on whether or not it actually violates those laws and how many it actually violates.
I did not get it in the stories that I wanted to, that I put up in the document that I shared with you earlier, but I did notice yesterday that there was an agreement in Michigan that the Republican leader in the Senate in Michigan has said, well, I'm going to go ahead and I will let a proposed law for red flag law come up in the Michigan Senate. And that's got most of his Republican colleagues in Michigan really upset with him. And most of the people in his district that are Republicans are quite upset with him. Now, it's not saying that's going to pass. He's just saying he's going to move forward for a vote. So, yeah, that could be bad news in Michigan.
Well, yeah, and that's by the way, another problem is because you've got a lot of Republicans, and once again, these people who call themselves pro Second Amendment, who haven't really thought this through, and that's because they've got law enforcement, and they are law and order conservatives, but they don't understand that it's not promoting law and order when you violate people's constitutional rights. And unfortunately, there are many in law enforcement whose desire to protect us outweighs their desire to keep us safe outweighs their desire to protect our constitutional rights. And that's not everybody in law enforcement, but that's too many policymakers in law enforcement who believe in that. And they need to be corrected. And I get it, you want to keep people safe, but you can't violate their rights in the process of keeping them safe.
I'm going to get this saying wrong, but I'm going to attempt it anyway. I prefer dangerous freedom over safe slavery anytime. And
oh no, you do. That's you just hit it right on the head. I like it. Brandon Combs over at the Firearms Policy Coalition has said more than once. He's made the point that he said, look, rights are dangerous. They are because when you start talking about a right, it's about protecting the right of the individual, even above sometimes even if they may abuse that right, right? Even if they abuse that right. Now, the thing is, protecting the right of the individual inevitably protects all of us, but it still opens us up to the individual being able to potentially harm others in the exercising of their right. But as I say all the time, we have laws in place that if someone abuses their right and causes harm to others, they can be held accountable, both criminally and civilly. And those are the laws that we need to lean on, not the laws that say we're going to take away the rights of everybody or of a large group of people simply because one of them, a small number of them, might actually abuse their rights and cause harm to others.
I want to get this comment in, and Craig, we've got the smartest viewers and listeners around. I want to get this comment in real quick. Charlie says, have you discussed Arizona's pro-gun measures? Thank you. And he includes a link, and I went over and popped the link up. This is from the NRA ILA website. This week, thanks to your continued calls and emails, pro-gun measures House Bill 2316 and House Bill 2414 were approved in committee. Another pro-gun measure, House Bill 2489, has been scheduled for a committee hearing on Monday. House Bill 2316 expands where concealed carry permit holders can lawfully conceal firearms to include certain public establishments and events. HB 2414 allows law-abiding citizens to store their loaded firearms in their locked personal vehicles while parked on school grounds. And HB 2489 creates a provisional concealed weapons permit for adults aged 18 to 20 years old. Those are three good bills, man. And I've left out a lot in interest of brevity, but those are three good bills, it sounds like to me.
No, there sounds like phenomenal bills. Once again, it's about protecting the right to keep and bear arms, and Arizona. My only question is how do you not have pro-gun senators? How does that happen? You're free American. How did this happen? I kind of get it because I know there's a lot of Californians that are there, but come on, y'all. Do something. Do something with these folks.
You've got California on one side. You've got New Mexico on the other side. and Arizona is this kind of glowing bastion of freedom. So,
Yes.
wow. But yeah, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. And because we're down just about, we got about 5 minutes left. While we're down at the bottom of the hour here on our way out the door, I want to remind everybody, especially those of you who are catching us on Ops Lens, I'm going to be in Arizona here in about a week and a half when they have their big 2A rally on the 19th. I'm going to be in Arizona helping to broadcast that for Ops Lens. So whether you're catching us on Facebook, on YouTube, or catching us on Ops Lens, if you can, get to Phoenix on the 19th, and you can meet me in person. Come up, say hi. You can meet my wonderful wife, Susan, and a lot of great 2A speakers are going to be there. A lot of wonderful people. I think you're going to have a blast if you can make it there.
Sounds like it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. So on our way out the door, man, Craig, the rundown. Where can people find you? And you are just before I come on here.
Yes. You can find us now. Our actual YouTube channel, the Rundown YouTube channel, has been removed from YouTube. So we have gotten the YouTube death penalty. But little do they know, we still broadcast at the California Republican Assembly, as well as at the California Republican Assembly, as well as at 2A News, which is also on YouTube. But you can find us at the Rundown on Facebook. You will soon be able to watch us on Rumble. We'll be doing the live stream on Rumble as well, and we're working on getting things set up on Ops Lens as well.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to that. One thing I love about Ops Lens, if you've got Roku, if you've got Apple TV, if there's a bunch of them. I don't have them all on the top of my head, but a bunch of the new TVs, you just load up Ops Lens and you've got it right there on demand. Whenever you want it, you can watch it. So
exactly, a lot of good programming there at Ops Lens, and we are looking forward to becoming a part of the Ops Lens family as well.
All right. Well, Craig, we're going to go ahead and set this one aside. Thanks again for joining us today, man.
Thank you for having me, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
All right. Folks, come join us again, 5 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. That was going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching.